He's Mike Singer. I'm Darren Pritchett. Let's get started, Mike, with Cree Thomas. He is someone that went to a high school that is the same as a pretty good player on the current Fighting Irish football team. I'll let you fill in the details, but he has a commitment date coming up.
Yeah, and following the visits here, Darren, it does look pretty good for the Fighting Irish. Cree Thomas from Phoenix Brophy Prep. I believe when Thomas would have been a freshman, Ben Morrison was a senior, so not a bad player to learn from if you're a freshman defensive back looking up at Ben Morrison. So Thomas is 6'1", 170 pounds. He is in the 2025 class, making him a high school junior. And during his recruiting process, which again, it's pretty early days. I mean, he hasn't even finished up his junior of high school. Arizona State, Arizona, Oregon, Wisconsin, Cal, some of the schools that are after him thus far. And he visited South Bend for the USC and Pittsburgh games, and went ahead and announced this week that he will be making his commitment public on the 20th. So, I logged a prediction, Darren. So look, sometimes we look smart on these predictions. Sometimes we look really dumb. This prediction for Thomas went in back in April. So I feel like, if, when I say for maybe the radio audience, it sounds familiar. Like, Mike, when you mean predictions, like for the On3 profiles on our website, we can make these, crystal ball predictions and, basically way for these insiders to make their pick on where we think these kids are going to go. So back in April, I picked Thomas to Notre Dame. So if he picks Notre Dame, I'll look smart for a moment, but if not, it'll just be a normal day for me. But yeah, Cree Thomas, you got to think Notre Dame looks good going into that decision, and he's not a highly ranked guy, number 372 overall player, number 43 corner per the On3 industry ranking. But yeah, it's still early rankings. I mean, there's so many prospects when they're a junior or even a sophomore where some of those rankings happen, Darren, where it's like, oh, wow, they're ranked so high. And then as more players get ranked, they drop, right? I mean, if you only have like 150 players ranked initially, and then your next batch is 700 players get ranked or something, then naturally guys are going to fall. And then you have someone like Cree Thomas where it's like, it's so early, he can rise. So I'm not worried about the rankings right now in the slightest. The more important thing to mention, Darren, is that he's someone who the Notre Dame staff really coveted, and they want him badly in their class.
Mike, we always know we're dealing with high school kids, so things change rather quickly. So those predictions are predictions. Christopher Burgess is another player that is on your radar. First, remind us who Burgess is and what does he have coming up?
So we've been talking about Burgess for a while, Darren. Every time I kind of throw out like, hey, Justin Scott, like Notre Dame's not able to land that elite 5-star caliber defensive lineman from Chicagoland, but there's another one in the 2025 class. So the next recruiting cycle that Notre Dame might be able to get, not ranked as highly as Scott, but is number 126 overall player, number 11 edge per the industry ranking. And again, he's also in the 2025 class, 6'4", 230 pounds from Chicago Simeon. He's announcing, he posted this morning on his Twitter page, he will be announcing his commitment on January 6th. So we've still got a couple months, but you look at Notre Dame, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, and Colorado, I think are the 5 schools that are probably have the best bet to land him right now. I think the last time that he visited Notre Dame would have been, let's see, for the Ohio State game. I believe he also went to Colorado in the fall, but he's been to Notre Dame a total of 6 times. When you compare Burgess with Justin Scott, the big problem with Justin Scott was that when you followed his visits, right? My term, follow the visits. He didn't go to Notre Dame very often. I think it was 3 times over a span of like 20 months or something crazy. Burgess has been to Notre Dame 6 times in a year or something like that. So I think that Notre Dame's in a pretty good spot, and my sources on the Irish side of things, Darren, concur. He hasn't made a decision yet, but Notre Dame is looking to be in a decent spot with Chris Burgess right now, so keep an eye on this young man.
I would say that just looking where Burgess comes from, that's not normally a school that profiles in line with Notre Dame. So pretty impressive. Kid from Chicago Simeon Public League, kid looking at Notre Dame. I mean, that's pretty doggone impressive and shows you that he's taking academics really seriously. So I like
Yeah.
the sound of that.
Yeah, I mean, Darren, before you continue, like I'll go back to Jalen Sneed. Notre Dame does not go into Hilton Head, South Carolina, and land many recruits. Like, I mean, Notre Dame always has that national profile. They, always have and always will. But I think the difference in Marcus Freeman recruiting is that, if the kid's in Chicago, he doesn't need to go to a school with the word Saint in front of it, or if they're going into Florida, they don't need to go, to a school with Catholic in the name to recruit players. Like they'll go anywhere, any high school, maybe sometimes they're beating their head against the wall, but I mean, I think the proof has been in the pudding so far.
Lewis Nix was a prime example, going down to Florida and getting a kid that doesn't come from that profile school, and he did very well here.